What if I just do the whole video like this? What's emoji fit? Oh, what's beauty? I want to do beauty. What's beautiful? Yeah, make me beautiful. Am I beautiful? I don't think it worked. There are secrets hidden within Bendy and the Dark Revival, mysterious coordinates hidden on a wall, hidden side quests that many will miss, and more. What I don't think anyone was expecting to find hidden away in the game's files was an angsty poem from the game's controversial developer Mike Mood. Pretty much everyone, including most Bendy fans, agrees that developer Mike Mood kinda sucks. He once insinuated that Game Theory's MatPat was bad at games after the latter rightfully criticized the universally panned Showdown Bandit.
What the heck?
Oh man,
that's so cheap.
That was a cool cutscene there.
No, it wasn't.
He constantly flaunts his wealth, tweeting out photos of luxury sports cars, mansions, and famously stating that he had enough money to buy a private island. Did I mention that in late 2019, Mike Mood reassured his employees that their jobs were safe before firing them all just 2 days later? If you couldn't tell, he's a really classy, likable guy. He totally doesn't go out of his way to make himself look extra punchable or anything like that. I would know about looking extra punchable. The poem that was found within the Dark Revival's files is... I'll show you. Many have hate for reasons untrue, with no perfect answer ever to break through. The biases held will never be changed, thus the answers to seek are never to be explained. Through pain and hatred, my armor was pierced through, yet the battle was still fought, everything put into it, even for you. Silence was desired, but from the shadows what was seen were fans wanting more, but just not from me. The cost was high for blood, sweat, and tears, but the battle waged on until finally we made it here. This reads like the lyrics to an emo song from the early 2000s. The cost was high with a why can't you see that I'm the fall guy? The sitting duck hated by hearsay. The power that I'm portrayed to have. The decision said to be solely mine. It's all fiction. Haven't you people heard of Fall Guys? To give some context, the first chapter of Bendy and the Ink Machine was made by 2 people over the course of about 5 days. After the game's massive success, developers theMeatly and Mike Mood opened an indie game studio in Ottawa, KindlyBeast. Things did not go well for this studio. Bendy made a ton of money, and suddenly these 2 indie developers found themselves managing 60 people and juggling multiple projects and priorities. They released a follow-up to Bendy called Showdown Bandit, which was a colossal failure. If you believe Mike Mood, it cost them millions of dollars, and they surely didn't recoup any of it. You can't even buy the game on Steam anymore. Showdown Bandit's failure dealt a massive blow to KindlyBeast, and employees were understandably concerned for their job security. Mike reassured everyone that their jobs were secure. 2 days later, almost everyone was fired, nearly 50 people. All of the studio's projects other than Bendy and the Dark Revival were either cancelled or put on indefinite hold. To make matters worse, while the employees were packing up their desks and trying to figure out what they were going to do next, the CEO and co-owner Mike Mood wasn't even there. Instead, he was making Instagram posts discussing how excited he was for the upcoming holidays. It wasn't a very good look. So that sucks, but I'm sure a lot of you are thinking well, that's business. Sometimes you take a job and the project falls through or things don't work out. If the company doesn't have the money to pay their employees, what else can they do but let them go? And that's true. However, some of the recently fired employees, including former VPs, started coming forward and maintained that KindlyBeast had plenty of money. Allegedly, they had a big enough war chest that even if all their revenue sources were to dry up and nobody ever bought Bendy again, they'd still have enough money to keep the studio going and fund all their projects, including their staff salaries, for another 2 years. This painted a very different picture of what had really gone down. Mike Mood had suggested that their hands were tied and that they had no choice but to let these employees go, yet others alleged that this wasn't true at all, that KindlyBeast was fully capable of retaining at least some of those staff members. Other allegations came to light. Ex-employees claimed that Mike Mood had deliberately fired them in a staggered manner, which prevented them from qualifying for mass termination benefits, which presumably are more generous than the standard ones. It came to light that Mike Mood had hired his sister as the company's head of HR, which is obviously a massive conflict of interest. When people learned about this, they were obviously really pissed off. It looked to me like KindlyBeast was trying to ignore the controversy at first in the hopes that everyone would forget about it eventually, but when that clearly wasn't going to happen, Mike Mood took to Reddit and did an AMA in an attempt to salvage his reputation. It didn't go very well. Naturally, the top question was why? Why did you do it? Why'd you fire almost 50 people days after telling them their jobs were secure? Why'd you do it if you had the money? There are so many reasons why this happened. Some parts I cannot talk about for legal reasons, but I can at the very least shed some light on the situation. First, this was not my decision alone. Yes, I am the CEO and own 50% shares in the company. However, we operate as a unanimous board of directors when it comes to making decisions. I cannot make any decisions on my own without it being an approved unanimous vote. So this was a unanimous decision by all of us. This is a trend in Mike's responses. He's very quick to point out that it wasn't just him and this was a group decision or our board agreed unanimously. Like, it almost looks like he's frustrated that he's the one getting singled out and getting the most flack for this and not theMeatly or anyone else on the board. Which again, is a really bad look. I mean, he was the CEO and owner of the company, yet he continually fails to comprehend why everyone put the blame on him. You're the boss. The buck stops with you, dude. Second, the alternative would be to continue operating by cutting costs, but ultimately go bankrupt. This information was brought to our attention by our CFO, but regrettably, this was 2 days after we told everyone that their jobs were safe, which at the time we believed to be the case. How can a company's CEO be so incompetent that they think everything is fine when in reality they're actually days away from having to fire everyone? There's no way the financial health of the company could have changed so dramatically over the course of 2 days. So either Mike Mood was lying when he told his staff members that their jobs were secure, or he's horrifically incompetent and clearly incapable of serving as the CEO. So we either A, lay off the majority of our staff and attempt to salvage whatever business we have left, which means cancel everything except for the cash cow Bendy, and in turn give severance to all of our employees along with the option of a career assistance package, or B, continue working on our projects which would ultimately need to delay, why, and within months' time go bankrupt. Why, and have to let everyone go without any severance whatsoever, have no more company, and lose everything theMeatly and I worked so hard for. Obviously they went with A and fired everybody. Mike never elaborates on how they ended up in this situation, nor does he take accountability for the fact that things had grown so dire under his leadership. The reason we did not discuss any of this sooner or openly is because there's legal red tape wrapped around this entire situation that I'm unable to comment on, even to this day. What kind of legal situation is preventing you from explaining to your employees why you fired them? KindlyBeast has since been sued for $500 million. So it's likely that this is what Mike is referring to, but that lawsuit has nothing to do with their employees. A user claiming to be an ex-KindlyBeast employee replied, fact-checking Mike's statement and calling them out for lying. Mike didn't respond. Things got even crazier. One presumed ex-employee asked Mike, "Why did you post on Instagram the day of the firing like nothing was wrong and posting about what an amazing Thanksgiving you'll have when you know you were letting people go at that very moment?" Mike's response is now deleted along with his account, but you can tell that things got heated. You don't know him whatsoever. You would know him, you fucked him at his house. Whoa, okay. When asked about former employees' allegations that the work environment at KindlyBeast had become toxic, Mike replied saying, "I don't believe we had a toxic environment. If this could be more elaborated on, I could most likely shed some light on some situations." A former employee replied, "Hi Mike, you never heard of it because you were the source, and no one would talk to HR who was your sister." The AMA was a disaster, and Mike came off looking terrible. He later deleted many of his replies before eventually deleting his entire Reddit account. You know you fucked your AMA up when it results in you having to delete your entire Reddit account. Since then, we haven't heard much from him, but shortly after the long-awaited release of Bendy and the Dark Revival, Twitter user Zephyr's World released screenshots of what appear to be a poem written by Mike Mood, hidden away in the game's files. In it, he asserts that he is not to blame for the many controversies and mismanagement surrounding Bendy's studio. That despite him being the owner and CEO of KindlyBeast, he somehow isn't responsible for anything, really. Many have hate for reasons untrue, with no perfect answer to ever break through. The biases held will never be changed, thus the answers to seek are never to be explained. Mike's poem begins by asserting that people hate him for false reasons, but that he doesn't have a good justification for his actions. However, he immediately contradicts himself by saying, "The biases held will never be changed, thus the answers to seek are never to be explained," whatever. Now he's saying that there are answers, and he's suggesting that he doesn't want to waste his time giving the answers that are totally real and totally legit, because no one will listen anyway. Yeah, totally. Through pain and hatred, my armor was pierced through, yet the battle was still fought. Everything put into it, even for you. I guess here he's congratulating himself for finishing Bendy and the Dark Revival in spite of being loathed by most of the series' fanbase. It's a weird thing to say because it's not like he made the game out of altruism. As the owner of KindlyBeast, Mike Mood stands to make millions of dollars from this game's success. Don't pretend you did it out of charity or just for the fans. I suspect that the aforementioned massive lawsuit was one of the big motivating factors behind getting Dark Revival done. Silence was desired, but from the shadows was seen, were fans wanting more. but just not from me. This is a weird line. Silence was desired, perhaps implied that Mike wanted everyone to leave him alone, but he hid away in the shadows and then saw that Bendy fans were still clamoring for a follow-up. They just didn't want Mike Mood to have anything to do with it, but I'm not really sure how true this is. I don't think anyone cared whether or not Mike Mood was attached to the project. People just wanted more Bendy by any means necessary. The fact that Dark Revival has been such a success despite Mike Mood's very prominent involvement is proof of this. Nobody cared. The power I'm portrayed to have, the decision said to be solely mine. It is all fiction, for I am the fall guy, the scapegoat, the sitting duck, hated by hearsay. None of it is true, but why believe the one you love to hate? Wow, this really pisses me off. Mike starts this poem by suggesting that he's portrayed to have more power than he actually does, and it wasn't just his decision to fire everyone, that he took on all the blame whilst others who were equally responsible weren't held accountable. That's fine, and I'm sure that's true to some degree. You don't fire the majority of your staff without talking it over with the other executives first. TheMeatly obviously knew about it and agreed to it as well. Yeah. However, you're the CEO. You're the 50% owner. Of course they're gonna blame you. Duh. What annoys me most though is when he says, none of it is true, but why believe the one you love to hate? Mike has been asked time and time again to please clarify these things, and every time he refuses to elaborate, citing legal reasons. I mean, like, dude, you start the poem by saying that the things people hate you for aren't true, but that you don't have good explanations to all these questions. You then go on to say that actually you do have an explanation, but why bother because no one will listen to you anyway. Now you're saying it's all fiction, that the accusations against you are completely false, that you're totally innocent, but that nobody believes you because you've been pinned as the bad guy. The real reason nobody believes Mike Mood is because he never gives satisfactory answers to any of these questions, and he can't give satisfactory answers to them because the truth is unsatisfying. Mike once said that if TheMeatly and I really wanted to, we could be millionaires chilling on our yachts, but we want to make something cool. That he was committed to using the fortune he had amassed from Bendy to uplift other indie game developers and produce more cool games. He had a lofty dream of turning Ottawa into a major Canadian game development hub, but I think at some point that changed. I think after running KindlyBeast and seeing Showdown Bandit collapse, Mike decided that actually, yeah, he would just rather be a millionaire chilling on his yacht than the head of a rapidly growing studio. It's a lot of work. Thus, rather than sink even more money into their troubled projects, he fired everybody and finished Dark Revival himself, assisted by a small team. The game was a tremendous success, and it'll undoubtedly make Mike millions more dollars, but I don't expect him to produce any future games. I think he wants to take his money and buy houses and cars and shit like that. Think of me what you will, no matter how misguided by fluff, but I made it to the end and got it done. Good enough. Coding and making this entire game regardless of my fears. You will never hear from me again, but I am still here. The way I see it, Mike Mood had two choices. He could have continued to support his staff and tried to fix the projects that floundered under his leadership, but it would have cost him a lot of money. Alternatively, he could cancel those projects, fire everyone, and keep the money in exchange for looking like an asshole. He chose the latter. Mike chose to be the asshole and fuck over a bunch of people who relied on him in exchange for holding on to millions of dollars. Millions of dollars that otherwise would have gone towards salaries and other monthly upkeep expenses, the money that would have gone towards his employees that he fired. Remember, Mike owns 50% of the company, and thus 50% of the company's money is his. In light of that, I find it really tiresome that Mike Mood continues to assert his innocence and lament that he took all the blame for his company's downfall. You're not a victim. Your staff members who were fired 2 days after being told their jobs were secure and after often moving across the country, they're the victims, dude. The staff members who felt that your work environment became toxic but couldn't go to HR because the HR rep was your sister, they're the victims. Nobody can know exactly what went down at KindlyBeast other than the people involved, and I'm sure it's frustrating to see people like me speculating as to what happened. However, the facts are that Mike Mood owned the company and was the CEO. He fired his employees and canceled all but one project. What do you think happens to the money that was set aside for those now canceled games? It goes back into the company's and thus the owner's pockets. It was already your money, but you had committed to using it for your studio. I'm not a boycott Bendy person. I think what Mike Mood did was pretty vicious and opportunistic, but you know, it was his money, it was his company, he had a right to do it, awful as it was. I just can't stand the fact that he refuses to take accountability for it, even now. Don't disappear with a poem hidden away in your game that continues to make excuses and shifts blame onto others. Just own the fact that you did a dick thing, took the money, and went home. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for watching. I'm still figuring out this whole camera thing, and I need to buy a better camera, obviously, but, the cost was high with a why can't you see that I'm the fall guy? The sitting duck hated by hearsay. The power that I'm portrayed to have. The decision said to be solely mine. It's all fiction. Haven't you people heard of Fall Guys? The sitting duck hated by hearsay. None of it's true, but why believe the one you love to hate?